So lions and scavengers, is this a coded way of saying right and left, or
No.
are there lions on the left and scavengers on the right as well?
I mean, I think that there can be lions and scavengers, within the human heart, meaning that one of the things I say in the book is that every single person can decide in the morning to wake up and be a proactive part of their own life, make good decisions, not root themselves in envy, root themselves in a belief that they can actually do a dutiful and useful thing in the world. That's the lion mentality. Or you can be a scavenger, waking up in the morning, looking at your problems, blaming shadowy forces in society for it, and then trying to rip down those institutions. So it can even be reduced to the individual level. But when we're talking about the political, one of the things that I strenuously avoided in the book were the terms right and left. And what you'll see if you read the book is I'm not sure that I refer to the right, if it maybe a little bit and maybe once. The left, I think I refer to once, but it's certainly not a stark division. There's certainly people who would consider themselves politically right-leaning, people who vote Republican, who are enmeshed in a grievance culture against the United States, against the civilization, who believe that their personal grievances are the result of systems that need to be torn down without providing evidence that that's, in fact, the case. And there are people who disagree with me politically on taxes and gay marriage, who are actually quite proactive, who believe that institutions have to be strengthened, rebuilt, fixed. And so I really do not think that it is purely a political thing. I think that grievance culture tends to adhere more closely to left-wing ideology, but I certainly think that there's a part of the new populist right that is horseshoed around to join this.
Yeah, so if you think of someone like Elon Musk in the year, say, 2010, clearly he's a lion because he's a builder, but he's not really on the right at that time, right?
Correct.
So that would be an example. And then people on the what is called the woke right by some now that like to blame everything on, the military-industrial complex or global Jewry, this kind of thing. These are people that have a fundamentally grievance-based relationship to Western society. It's just that the enemies are different than the enemies.
That's exactly right. I mean, on the right, it manifests as a lot of conspiracy theorizing. One of the things I talk about, I think it manifests everywhere, is a sort of conspiracy theory. And traditional biblical religion is actually, in many ways, sort of the anti-conspiracy theory. So if you think about paganism in its original form, it was the idea that, as Gloucester says in King Lear, that the gods, strike us down like flies for their sport. That is sort of the pagan ideology, and I would say the post-God ideology is that things happen randomly, bad things happen to good people. You can't control any of that. And then that is then projected into a conspiratorial idea that there must be forces beyond your reckoning who are out to get you. And you can see that on both right and left. The biblical worldview is actually quite harsh. It basically says that if you fail, it's probably your fault. There's a God-centered, ordered universe. If you do the right things, good things will likely happen. If you do the wrong things, bad things will likely happen, right? That's the entire book of Deuteronomy. And so the movement away from kind of personal responsibility and duty, that results in this very conspiratorial view of society in which, again, shadowy forces are out there and they're manipulating you. And if you don't understand that, it's because you now have almost a Marxist false consciousness that has to be opened up. You need to be black-pilled. You need to be awoken to the problems in society that you never spotted before. It turns out maybe America was on the wrong side of World War II. Maybe the moon landing never happened, because the normal kind of response to this nonsense is to say, well, America seems like pretty awesome. Right? You have all these grievances against America, but I mean, let's face it, America kind of kicks ass. I mean, we defeated the Nazis, we defeated the Soviets without firing a direct shot. We have created the single most prosperous era in the history of humanity with the broadest spread of wealth in the history of humanity. Like, we're kind of great. And so the answer to that from both sides is no, you're totally misapprehending history. For one side, it's the 1619 Project. And then, as some folks at Free Press have written, for others, it's the 1939 Project.
Right. So can you be a lion without being religious, or do you have to be grounded in a biblical or otherwise monotheistic morality?
So you absolutely can be a lion without being religious. I think that the behavior itself is predicated on certain assumptions that are religious in nature. But I think that most lions don't actually go around thinking about their philosophy, right? This is something that I make clear in the book. I think that most lions don't sit around thinking about what are kind of the roots of what they think. Most people don't, generally speaking. Scavenger, same thing. I don't think that people sit around like, oh, I read Sartre today, so now I'm a scavenger. Or, I was sitting around, I was reading F.A. Hayek, and now I've decided to be a lion. Or I was studying my Bible, and now I'm going to be a lion. I think it's more sort of the premises that I'm talking about that most people act upon are inherently non-provable by science and have to be assumed. And those are generally religious principles. Right? It's almost the argument that I'm making. It's almost a Richard Dawkins-esque, like he likes the kind of soft Christian messaging without the God. I think that's quite possible. You can live that way. I don't think it's scalable. I think that at a certain point you end up with what one writer called cut flower syndrome, where if you separate the flower from its roots, it can live in the water for a bit, but eventually it's going to die. It does need the constant feeding from certain religious premises. But for individuals, sure. And I think even for civilizations, for a time, you could probably get away with it.
Right. What about without the tradition of the Western canon in general? Like if your heritage is Hindu or Confucian, can a whole civilization orient itself towards the lion mindset, or is it required to be sort of Western in root?
I mean, I do think that historically speaking, it has been Western in root. Historically speaking, there's a reason that the West has been successful, and there's a reason why when you graft Western institutions into soil that is particularly conducive, you can end up with a Japan that is highly successful. I think that to pretend that it kind of arises everywhere equally would be to be historically inaccurate. So I'd be open to a counter, but I don't see a tremendous historical counter.